one thing about Singapore is that it's the first time I've ever felt American.
Oh, wow. Wow, I've heard this like twice today.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, because in America, you can't be...
Welcome to the Melanated Files. In this series, we highlight and share the stories of black people from across the globe. Remember to subscribe to this channel for weekly videos and also follow us on social media for regular updates. Let's get into the interview.
I don't know why, but I can't seem to get you off my mind. And I know it's true, and I'll say this to you, I want you back. There's something inside, yeah, there's something inside that brings me back to you, yeah. No, I can't hide it, no, I can't hide it anymore. Something inside, something inside.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Melanated Files. My name is Ranzo and today we're joined by Ashley Woods right here in Singapore. It is a cool day. I'm sweating a little bit, but that's not that bad, right? So we're gonna get into her story right now. So Ashley,
Yeah.
so tell me, why Singapore?
I feel like my reason for being in Singapore is pretty shallow. I was living in the Bay before in California, and I felt like the weather was so dry. I was thirsty every day. I couldn't breathe. My throat hurt.
Yeah.
So I said, look, I just want to live somewhere that's humid every day.
Okay.
And I put a couple different places in my map. I had never heard of Singapore.
Really?
And I like zoomed in Google Maps and saw that it was close to the equator. And we had an office here for my job.
Okay.
So I applied for a job in Singapore and I got it. And that's kind of how it brought me here. Just warm weather, honestly.
Oh wow. How long have you been in Singapore?
I've been here 2 years.
2 years, okay.
So my visa's expiring. I'm about to renew it for another 2.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So what do you do? What brought you here to Singapore?
Yeah, so I work in marketing,
Okay.
in brand and reputation marketing for Google.
Okay,
So I was working for Google at headquarters in Mountain View, and then I came over with the same company. It's been great being here.
Okay. So what has your black experience been like in Singapore? How do you find it in comparison to the States?
So I lived in the Bay, and I always said the Bay is dry. I felt like there were black people, but I came from Atlanta before that. So it's nothing like living in Atlanta. There's nothing like the number of black people that you see there. So coming to Singapore felt very similar to the Bay for me.
Oh, okay.
The Bay has a lot of white people, a lot of Asian people, some black people. It's kind of a mixture of everything, and that's what I felt like Singapore was. So being black here was very similar. I always tell people that one thing about Singapore is that it's the first time I've ever felt American.
Oh wow. Wow, I've heard this like twice today.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, because
Wow.
in America, you can't be... I've never heard of anyone calling me American. I've never heard that term. If you're only American if you're white.
Okay.
If you're black, you're African American. You're Hispanic American. You're Asian American. Here, I'm American.
Yeah.
So it was the first time I have ever felt like I'm an American person here. Yeah. And it like the American comes before being black.
Wow.
People see American before they see black.
Wow.
Yeah.
How does that feel? Like emotionally?
It was tough at first because I had this, I think, negative idea of what like American looked like the flag and the Confederate soldier.
Oh, wow.
I had this negative idea, and when someone called me American, I was almost offended, and I was like, wait a minute, I am American, but I was so used to being called African American or black. But I'm fine with it now. I think being in Singapore, you forget the idea of like racism. You forget about those things that you experience, those microaggressions that you experience in the States. So for better or for worse, you start to forget those things, which can be a good thing in the moment. It can be a relief from being in the States, so yeah. Okay,
so the general attitude towards black people, in your opinion, is positive in Singapore?
Oh, for sure. Not even just in daily interactions. I think also in the like music culture. Out here, like any bar you go to, anything, you hear black music, and it's not an appropriation. It's people who truly appreciate Black culture and are invested in it. You go to Afrobeat parties every weekend. You go just all these different places you can go and experience Black culture with people who actually love it and appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really dope.
Okay. How do you find the Black community in Singapore versus back in the States? Right, because we just attended your lunch, right?
Yeah,
amazing, really cool vibe, really chill, like a wide, like a very diverse group, I should say.
Correct. It's diverse. It's so many European Black people out here that it's great to see so many people who are like straight from Africa out here. You have American Black people. You have Hispanic. You have people. This one girl from Brazil out here today. So I think the diversity of it allows me to expand my mind of what being Black means.
Yes.
Because you believe that Black is just one system, like in the States, like all my friends were Black. And then you come here and you're like, wow, Black has so many different meanings to so many different people and so many different experiences that I found the community out here great. And I actually enjoy it. And I think because Singapore is so small, you're forced to be like this tight-knit community versus when I was living in the Bay, it felt very temporary. Like you could talk to this person today, oh, I'll see you later. You never see them again. Here, if you say I'm gonna see you later, you better see that person later because the island is so small that you have no choice but to make friends with people and keep those relationships strong.
Okay. How do you find the work culture here, right? Because just like you said, it's almost like, well, in terms of being Black, right? It's like, well, there's a departure from just the label of being Black, but American now. So you're like Ashley in Singapore, they call you Ashley, that's what they see.
Yes.
Right? So in the workplace it's the same? It's
for sure. It's funny because I leave for an event for Black and Hispanic Googlers. So people who work at Google are called Googlers.
Okay.
And I'm going to an event for Black and Hispanic Googlers that's happening next week.
Okay.
I leave tomorrow, actually in Oakland. And so all the Black and Hispanic Googlers across Google are coming together for this. And the things that you talk about that you experience in the workplace are things that, quite honestly, don't affect me that much anymore. Now that I'm in Singapore, I really don't feel like people see me as Black.
Okay.
Like, people see my work ethic, they see what I'm doing. I do believe that there's a lot of political hierarchy, a lot of cultural hierarchy, like Asian culture hierarchy.
Here.
That, for sure, all throughout Asia in the workplace that I'm trying to navigate. And I have a very intense personality where I will say what I feel is right and say what I feel is wrong in the workplace. And I think Asian culture doesn't always support that. Yeah. And I think that...
So what has the response been to that type of approach on your part?
Mixed vibes, I should say. I'm shocked I haven't been fired yet, but I just keep doing me and hope for the best.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been mixed vibes. Like that hierarchy I can't deal with, and I'll call it out and say, this is not right. This is not right.
Have you seen any moves to make changes when it comes down to the things you've highlighted or pointed out?
I'm out here trying to make change. I'm out here trying to make changes in the workplace. There are a lot of differences between men and women in the workplace in Asia that I see, and it's not okay. In the way that some women are treated in certain countries that I've seen with my own eyes. Or
is sexism big here in Singapore?
So I work with people in every country. I sit on a regional role, so I work with people in Japan and China and Australia and in every single country out here that we have offices. So I see the mixes depending on the market. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, wow. All right, so tell me about, let's see. We're talking about Singapore. What do you like the most about being here in Singapore?
The weather.
Overall. The weather, that's it, right?
Yeah, I'm sweating a little bit now, but the weather, definitely for sure. I like that it's chill. I lived in New York for a little bit. I hate New York. It's so dirty. But here it's clean. It's just good vibes. You just walk around and feel at peace. I live on the waterfront. I love living near water, so you just feel this peace. Beautiful nighttime views, Marina Bay Sands, the skyline views of the Central Business District in downtown. I just think it's such a chill place to live,
Is there anything about it that you don't like?
Oh, yeah. I love the food here, but the food can make me very sick sometimes because a lot of parts of Asia, the food quality standards are not quite as high.
Okay.
And I know in America there's a lot of hormones, etc., but I think out here especially, things don't have to be as clean. So it can make you very sick. I think
in Singapore,
food poisoning is like I feel like at my job on a daily basis, someone's out of food poisoning.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, so Google is one company, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying the culture is different in Singapore versus the States?
Oh, for sure.
So
in every office.
Oh, wow. So the issues that you guys talk about or discuss at the event you're going to, is you think it's more relevant in the States in terms of like racial tension or race relations in the workplace?
With black people, yes. I think there's a lot of racial tensions in the Singapore office, but not with black people.
Okay.
But as far as being black, completely different experience. I think you bring with you your blackness, you bring with you your experiences though. So there are times I think when something might happen in the workplace and I take it to mean one thing because it meant that thing in the States.
Okay.
So if someone said or did that thing, it would have been a microaggression, it would have been racism. And here it might be ignorance, but not in an ignorant way like I just don't want to know. The ignorance like, I've actually never seen this before.
Okay.
Right? So there's a little bit of a difference. Like, someone asked me one time at work, when I first started, she said, is it okay if I call you African American, or do I need to call you black? I just want to make sure I don't say the wrong thing. Because she just had never met an African American person to ask that question. Yeah. So it's not that she meant it in a bad way, it was just she wanted to make sure she didn't offend me, which I appreciated. So
she was Singaporean?
She's been in Singapore long enough, she's probably Singaporean at this point.
Okay.
But she's Indian.
Okay. In terms of working at Google, right?
Yeah.
What is it like being a black woman working at Google? What's that experience like? Tell me about the process to get there and your experience so far.
My process to get to Google is very unconventional.
Okay.
It's a very long story. Long story short, I feel like I was meant to be here, and my resume made it through. It's a very long story. I didn't have the typical journey. But as far as being black at Google, I think we have such a strong community. Such a network of the most intelligent black human beings who you can sit down and have a conversation about politics and then turn around and be ratchet and then turn around and like you talking about the education system in America and then you have a very deep conversation about racism all in the same hour, right? Wow. And I love it. I love the black community at Google. When I was living in California, I would say maybe 90% of my friends were Googlers, were black from the black Googler community. Very powerful community for sure. How
important do you think black people in tech is? In my mind, I think it's really important in terms of progressing even as a people forward because tech runs the world right now, right? And if we're not in those spaces, I feel like underrepresentation is a big thing, I think. And I think it's a handicap for black people. What do you think from being on that side?
Yeah, we actually have some people who do talks about this, about inclusiveness. We have a girl named Annie. There was someone named Nancy who left and went to Uber who did a lot of this work at Google as well before about like inclusive tech. So things as small as if I'm searching for some sort of like bug, like a spider bite or something, and you search for the image and there's no brown skin. And it's not just black people, it's Indian people who say this, it's Spanish people, anyone that's not white. Yeah. And you don't have representation even in search images. And that's a problem. Yeah. And we have a lot of people who are on the ground, engineers, marketers, people in HR who care about these issues, who are trying to push through and make our products as representative as possible for black people. So being there on the ground helps a lot. And I know there's things on YouTube of like sink manufacturers, like the automatic hand washing sinks, and the black person puts the hand and it doesn't work, and the white person puts the hand and it works. Like those types of things.
Some of the doors, it's crazy, right?
If it's not tested on black people, how are you gonna make it work? Wow. Plus, I always tell people like we have Googlers from Haiti who grew up with no running water, no Wi-Fi. Googlers from all parts of the world who grew up with different resources. And how much more knowledge can they bring to India or to Indonesia or to sub-Saharan Africa in places that are dealing with the same things that a lot of our areas in the U.S. or in the islands have dealt with, right? They can bring that knowledge, bring those resources and those ideas because, to be quite honest, out of those places, where there are less tech and less resources, that's where the most innovation comes out of. It's people who need to find a solution for something and don't have nothing to do it with, and they just find something in a tree somewhere and innovate, right? And that's where innovation is coming from. Unless you find those people who are diverse enough, who have been in those situations, who grew up with that, who grew up cleaning the river water so it was potable, grew up catching rainwater and using it to water the garden so they're not wasting water. Like, unless you get those people and get their knowledge and their juices flowing, how are you going to build the right things? How are you going to be innovative as possible? So I think it's really important being black in tech, having diversity in general in tech. Yeah.
Do you think it's that black people are not interested in it, or are they applying for the positions and not getting them? What do you think? I'm not sure. I'm just asking.
I think it's a hairy issue. I think a part of it is where recruiters are. I think I went to a private university called Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
I went to the business school there, and Google wasn't at my school. They weren't in Atlanta. They for sure were not in Atlanta. They were at Stanford. They were at probably Harvard. They were at the Ivy Leagues, right? I mean, Emory's a great school. And if they were at probably Morehouse, they were probably just recruiting for HR or for sales or for like a very entry-level position or something like that. They probably weren't hiring for engineers and for things like that. So, but I think they're trying to do a better job. So we have some really passionate Googlers who started this program called Howard West. And they basically started this training program over the summer for I think it was just for Howard students at the time, to come to Mountain View and do engineering training.
Oh, wow.
To like essentially train the next generation of engineers, of black engineers. Because if HR says every day, oh, we don't have a pipeline of students who are prepared with the skills. Okay, cool, let's teach them the skills. So all these black students are gonna get trained on the Google campus. So recruiters, you can't say that they're not skilled, right? Because we train them, right? If we train them, then they're good to go, right?
No excuse.
Right? So they've expanded that program. I think it might be called HBCU West or something like that now. So I think they've opened it up to a number of HBCUs to make sure we're training black engineers in a way that will prepare them. Because there is a problem in some HBCUs where I know at one point, AT&T like lost its A&T lost its accreditation, and like some of the engineering schools aren't top notch from HBCUs. And so how do you make sure that you're investing in those schools so that when those students graduate, they are ready for companies like Google?
In terms of the image of black people across like Asia, because some people grapple with it, as you said, like in Korea, Japan, there's different experiences.
Oh, for sure.
And some people have a hard time, some people not so much. It's like a lot of people haven't seen us for the first time. Right, so it's like, okay, like they might see me and say, "Snap, the first black guy." I met a lady in Japan. I was the first black guy that she saw.
Well, Japan is this whole other animal.
Right? What can we do you think, on our part to sort of repair our image in terms of what the media has done so far? Like, what can we do?
Be the media. Like, get out there and exactly what you're doing is showing people, like, this is another side of black people. You get all these questions of, like, where you see people all over the world calling people nigga, right? Because they say, oh, well, you say it in the music, you say it in the songs. Like, I remember one of my coworkers in the States, he was saying that he thought all black people just, like, were poor and put their pants under their waist, all that kind of stuff, because that's what he saw in the music videos. And he was European. And he said, I grew up thinking that. And he was like, when I met my first black person, I was shocked that that wasn't the life. Media. Because you see it in the media and you see it in music. And until we start producing stuff that people can see positivity and it spreads and it becomes this viral thing of positivity, then who's going to know that it exists, right? So I think that's the only way. And that's what we're on. We're on a mission to try to like repair the image. Right, as you said, be the media. That's exactly what I think it is. Like, not begging them to show us in a certain light, because they have their own interests. We're like, we have our own interests as well. So it's like, you know what? Let's do what we can. And things are changing, though. I mean, you have all these new TV shows. You have HBO, who's like out here trying to get black shows and black created artists, and then other people are following suit. I think Fox has brought on black shows, and then you have 50 Cent doing his show. And then I think it's changing where at that time when they had the what award show was it that was all white and they black people protested
was it the Academy Award? Was it?
It was one of the Golden Globes or one of those.
Okay, I don't know which one.
But every black person was protesting it because there was no black people nominated. After that year, I think it was a black woman who came in and was like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I think the industry has been changing. So we're getting our voice back. We're getting a voice in the industry to be able to make that change. But it's taken time, and it will continue to take time.
Yeah. What drives you personally? Like in terms of do you have a philosophy?
I think I would say my kind of the words I live by is that anything you can do without God and other people isn't big enough. And I had a pastor in Atlanta that said that one day, that anything you can do without God and other people isn't big enough. And that's kind of what I live by. And I think my career certainly pushes me quite a bit. Always trying to make it to the next level, trying to be CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. Anybody got openings, I'm here. So that definitely pushes me a lot. Trying to find balance is really hard. Trying to find that balance between like scaling up in my own well-being and my own health. So I met my boyfriend in Singapore.
Okay.
And he's helping me to find that balance. So that's been really nice to have something or someone that takes a part of my life that's not work.
Okay.
So it's been great.
How do you believe traveling has enriched your experience?
Traveling. So I travel pretty much every week. I think I'm in a different time zone like every week. It's been great for me to know people better. I think I have learned more than anything is that the media in America seeks to divide, seeks actively to divide.
Wow.
I had never realized that until I came out here, and I was in an airport, I think in Indonesia, and very, very Muslim Indonesia, a lot of Muslim people, and so I was in the airport, and you see people with I believe the hijab and everything, and just going through the airport freely, and in my mind I was like, they didn't get searched, they didn't get tapped, right? And it was like, this is great, where people don't feel violated in the airport. And then I went to the States for the first time since being here after a year of living here, and people were getting pulled aside and people were getting searched, and I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
We grew up in this place of being divided, and I met this guy who has been a friend of mine who's Muslim, and I told him when we first met, I said, look, I don't mean to offend you, and I'm so sorry, but the only thing I've ever seen about being Muslim in the States is terrorism.
Wow.
I was like, so I'm so sorry. If you could just help me understand what it means. And it wasn't until moving out here that I took the time to learn things outside of my race. And I don't know if anyone's going to take this out of context, call me ignorant, call me whatever you want to call me. But I grew up in the South, in the U.S. You had black people, you had white people, and you had Asian people who worked at the Chinese restaurant, right? So I didn't know anything but that. So coming out here has shown me that there's a lot of division happening, and you have to get out here. You have to get out and see the world and learn that the way people show the world is not it at all. I met someone from Egypt during a time when there was everything on the news was about Egypt and danger, and I met someone from Egypt. He was like, it's nothing like that. He said, look, the media is showing that one little street that had that one protest that day, and they showing it for weeks in America, but we cool out here. And I was like,
You see, it all comes back to media, right? It all comes back to media.
Exactly.
Wow. And that's one thing that I think as black people we're up against. And it's like once you leave, as you said, it's like you're almost like you're enlightened. You're exposed to the truth. Right? So, okay, so you guys see it. This is reinforcing the mission, right? It's so important. So tell me, like, any advice for black people that are looking to actually move into this region or Singapore?
Before advice, I would caveat and say it's hard.
Okay.
It's a tough journey. I think when I moved out here, everyone said, oh, it's so great. The weather's great. You can travel. Like, come on down. And what they forget to tell you is that it sucks at first.
Okay.
And you're going to be heartbroken for a long time. And you're going to cry a lot.
How so?
And
why?
Because you're alone. You don't know anybody. You're moving out here. It's not just about being black. It's about picking up your life to a place you don't know anyone. I've picked up my life 4 times. Right? And to do it on the other side of the world, it was like, when am I going to be done with this? And you hit a depression. You have to deal with the difference in work culture. You have to deal with a lot of stuff that can take over your heart, it can take over your spirit, and it is really hard. And it takes people months to get over that hump. So before people tell you, come out, it's great, you need to see the world, just know it's gonna be hard with that expectation. And then I'll give you the encouragement.
Okay. It's good, it's important. So, okay, so what else? Like, what advice would you give them beyond that once?
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
So prepare yourself for like the initial culture shock, the loneliness potentially.
Prepare yourself.
Right? So how can they do that? How can they prepare themselves for that?
Little moves at a time. So like I moved to Atlanta, I didn't know a soul. It was my first time having to restart my life. I was in New York for a little bit. I moved to California, which felt like the other side of the world.
Oh, wow.
When you're on the East Coast of the U.S., California is a whole new world. And then I moved out here. It was like little pieces. I don't think I could have came here straight out of the South.
Okay.
From North Carolina to Singapore. I don't think I could have done that. I think having little like migrations definitely helps in preparation. And I don't think there's anything that can prepare you. You come out here and you just have to come in with the expectation that it's going to be hard and be ready for it. You have to be, it takes a very strong person. This is not for everybody.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so do you mean emotionally it takes a strong person?
Yes,
like,
for sure.
So in terms of moving from where you are, like familiarity into like an unknown environment, so that's challenging, that aspect of it.
Unknown environment, you leave your friends, you have to restart your life. You leave the food brands that you know, the Crest toothpaste, and like just the basics change a lot. Like if the walls in my apartment are made of cement, so I can't nail in my posters and my paintings, and those are seem very small, but they change your environment. Yeah. They change your environment, and so you lose, like you said, that familiarity, and it can be really, really tough. Okay. I think Singapore, because of its diversity, is a little bit easier. I think Japan, it's homogeneity. I don't know if I could do Japan. I think if I spoke Japanese, I would be able to do Japan. Could never do China. There's a lot of places I could never do. I don't think I could do Thailand. I think Singapore may be the only place in Asia that I could do. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I wanted to ask about, a lot of people, when I interview them from like different countries, right, in terms of Asia primarily, they talk about safety as it being a big thing, right? Do you feel that as well in Singapore? Is that something that you like that was an issue for you back in the States? Like for me, even when I visit the States and I walk around, sometimes, not all the time, but when I encounter a police officer, I gotta say, like, there's this intense trepidation because you never know what's gonna happen. Do you feel like you've escaped that feeling, or have you experienced that?
Oh, totally escaped. It doesn't exist here. I went to Paris, when I was in Paris last year, I had my entire bag stolen, my passport, everything, because I had been in Singapore so long that I lost my wit.
Oh, wow.
I lost my, like, keep everything together. Don't, like how you left your camera in the room, you would have never done that anywhere else, right? Like you would have never, he left his camera out in the middle of the street.
It was on the ground actually, in Japan it's okay, but in other places, no.
But you lose your wit sometimes, and like I was in South Africa, in Johannesburg, and I was like, keep it together, because I had to remind myself, not everywhere is like Singapore. Yeah. So I feel like I have certainly escaped that very thankfully escaped that.
Tell me, where can people find you online?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Ashley Woods. I don't know, you're gonna find me of all the other Ashley Woodses, I'm Black. Also Instagram, I'm always on Instagram. My Instagram is complicated, it's love.life.always, but the O is a 0, that's the trick. So it's L0ve.life.always. So love life always. All
right, you guys will see it on the screen and in the description down below as well. So thank you so much, Ashley, for having me.
Thank you.
Guys, there you have it, right? This was Ashley Woods. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and remember to subscribe to this channel for weekly videos on the Black experience across the globe. Until next time, bye for now.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to share your story or have us visit your region, send us a message on any of our social media platforms or via our website.
That's good.